Hello and welcome to Core TV coverage of the Core Australian V8 Supercars live from Silverstone. Last time out at Brands Hatch, the other UK round of the season. It's Racing scored a hat-trick of victories, and today a larger field of Australian V8 Supercars will be out to try and knock him off the throne, as it were. I'm joined today by Tom Chorley once again.
Hello there, Adam, and it's good to be at the home of British motorsport this time around. You know, Brands Hatch is all good and everything, but for me, Silverstone is the pinnacle for British motorsport, with all its history and prestige and great racing we've had so far in the Core Series around here. So hopefully today will be no different.
I'm not going to start a Silverstone versus Brands Hatch debate, as I know the race is only a few seconds away from its start. The green flag will wave in just a few moments' time. But as you say, at Silverstone, great history throughout Core and indeed real life. And we're going to add a new chapter to the history books today with this first ever round of the Core Australian V8 Supercars at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It is round 5 of the season, and it's going to be a good one here at the Silverstone circuit. We're just a few moments away now, and it remains to be seen whether we're going to have different winners on the grid this time. If the weather plays into anyone's hands, we could well see it. We have Santu929 on pole, followed by Addy Lizard, so that's a new front row for certain. Maybe those two are wet weather specialists. We're about to find out here, as we'll be green any second. 11% on the weather gauge already. The cars are very close to the start there. We only have two cars with windscreen wipers on. And we are underway here. Santu929 with the best start by far. Addy Lizard dropping through the pack. Glenhouse 81, and it's Racing splitting him and falling back down to 5th position. So a horror start for Addy Lizard, down to 6th already. Glenhouse 81 has inherited 2nd place, but Santu929 still has that lead. Addy Lizards fell back very badly in that first couple of corners. I was very surprised to see him have such a bad start as he turns in on MTLA there. MTLA, who was of course absent from the last round, straight back into the top 6. But that could have been a lot worse than it actually was.
Yes, it could have been. What we've got a situation here is most of the runners appear to be on the full wet tyre, and although the track is getting steadily wetter as we're going on in this race, it is still not quite wet enough to get the best out of those wets at the moment. So perhaps Addy's struggling to deal with them in these more intermediate conditions at the moment. Santu appears to be doing all right with them so far, and Glenn seems to be getting the best of it as well. So undoubtedly, it's going to get wetter as this goes on, as things stand at the moment. But for the time being, it's going to be adjusting to these conditions until the tyres are in their operating conditions, which is more towards sort of 70-80% wet and beyond. So this will be quite interesting up until we get to that level of wetness.
Yes, it definitely will. The cars are hairy enough as it is, but in these wet conditions with tyres that are not at their optimal working range, it could get very interesting indeed. But Santu929 is handling it very well. He's kept that lead throughout most of the first lap, but he has Glenhouse 81 right behind him in that spray, and I think we've had a moment already. Ben Crow and Killing Heidi, it looks as if they've had a big moment there on the Maggots-Beckett's complex. Oh dear, not good to see something happen so early on in the race. It remains to be seen whether these two have any damage. I think that Killing Heidi has got off unscathed, but I'm not entirely sure Ben Crow has.
Well, given actually, I'm not going to start the Ben bashing yet, but I think true to form, some malice will have misfallen him in a moment, as we see Addy Lizard going to the pit lane, as we saw his name climb up the tower on the right there, because of course to the pit into Silverstone here, you miss out the Abbey Vale and Club section and get a bit of a jump into the pit lane, which is why sometimes you can be a bit sneaky here and pit on the last lap instead of taking the start-finish line and checkered flag, and you can jump a couple of positions sometime if you're feeling particularly crafty. I don't think that would be tolerated here in the Core Series though, so clearly Addy and Ben and Heidi have all got some issues going on, which is why they've all gone to the pit lane as we're getting towards the conditions now where the wet tyres are going to be in their operating window. So those who started on them, which I think is all of them actually, one to the front have certainly looked after their wets well enough, which will probably have actually got some good heat into them, because normally the wets are pretty difficult to get to their full temperature and get the best out of them.
Look at that MTLA in the braking zone for Brooklands there. That was a big moment, very squirrely under the brakes, that Ford Mustang. But as you were saying, you can definitely try to gain an advantage using that pit entrance, but that will not be tolerated here at Core. You will be disqualified. Save that for the open lobbies, although I don't think they'll appreciate it much either. Optimus Prime, I'm noticing, has a new livery, and since we made such a fuss out of a certain new livery last time, I'll just point that out. It's very interesting to see the Lexus in a new shade, yellow colour, so that's nice to see. And it's particularly good to have more bright colours on the course, since it is so dark here today. Helps us differentiate the cars a little bit more than you normally would. And here's It's Racing. We're on board with him down the Hanger Straight. Look at the amount of spray we have already.
Yes, it's particularly perilous, but I imagine most drivers will be using the on top of bonnet cam, which we're using now to see these images, which is obviously...
Whoa,
It's Racing's going on.
Moment for It's Racing. Is he going to hit the barriers? I think
he's just stayed out of it, hasn't he? He's just kept out the barriers there, dropping it on the edge of the stow, which is quite easy to do, as it's a very long race exit. What's going on there? Was that
the exact same thing? Keeping it out of the barriers as well, going back end first towards the barriers rather than front end first. Seems like particularly wet around that section of the track.
Yeah, we're getting up towards 100% wet now, and these cars are tricky enough in dry conditions now, let alone in pretty much now full wet conditions. So this is going to be incredibly challenging at this stage. The one who seems to be getting the best of it at the moment is Santu, along with Glenn Alsers. They're the two who are still leading away. Glenn, he's closing up slowly on Santu, but in these conditions it's going to be a bit tricky.
I'd argue that Santu's dropped him in the last lap or so, actually.
Perhaps that Mercedes of Glenn is being hidden by the spray, and it's difficult to see where they all are. Those do look particularly treacherous conditions out there now. I remember... was that Full Gas who's had a bit of an incident there down into Village Corners? He's dropped behind Addy Lizard now, so someone who's clearly not liking these maximum wet conditions, as I think, as we see, Ben's into the pits again, so most likely yet another incident for him. And what was it here?
And here's Addy Lizard ahead of Full Gas. Full Gas not having the best of times so far. Obviously, as you say, 2 incidents in a row. We saw him go off on the exit of Stowe, and he has since fallen back behind Addy Lizard in the green M3. It's very interesting to see which cars and which drivers suit themselves best when it comes to these wet conditions. And as we just hit the 100% marker, it's vital for those who, aren't quite as adjusted to the wet conditions to just keep it on track, because they could still pick something up. So the key now is to just slow down a bit. Don't drive above your limits. Try not to use too much curb, and as evidenced, stay particularly careful at Stowe, because that seems to be catching out everyone at the moment.
Yes, it's going to be the traction events, which are going to cause
people to see. He always gets caught out there.
Yeah, very, very twitchy there on the exit of Stowe. Yeah, as I say, it's going to be the traction events which are going to be causing people the biggest issue. I imagine coming out of club here is going to be particularly treacherous. But the good thing in these conditions is the wet tyres take quite a while to degrade when it's fully wet. So now they should all be up to temperature. And the benefit to them is that because it's only a 9-lap race, they will pretty much be a constant throughout this race. They won't drop off at all, really. So they'll have as long as they don't chuck it off the scenery, they'll have...
It's Glenel's 81 on the exit of the first turn, using the new runoff at Silverstone since the upgrade in 2010, saving Glenel's bacon there, because if that was a few years ago, they wouldn't have been going through that complex, but if it was a few years ago at Silverstone, he would have found the gravel there.
He certainly would. He can thank MotoGP for that, as of course they'd were coming here when we thought Formula 1 was losing Silverstone. So, of course, they made the accommodations to the track for motorbikes, which is why there was such ample runoff now around the new Abbey section, Village, the Loop and Aintree. And undoubtedly it does help you out if you get it wrong, which you can do going into Abbey, as it's obviously an exceptionally fast corner. The back end will swing out on you, particularly in these conditions, as we see It's Racing now, who was on a bit of initial challenge. Oh, didn't he go off at Stowe? Yes, he's one of the ones who's come unstuck by Stowe Corner. And
someone who's come unstuck by internet connection issues is Ben Crow, who is now out of the race, and Addy Lizard there, going around the outside of It's Racing. I'm not entirely convinced It's Racing is comfortable in these conditions, because he's dropping places and he is losing time.
Yes, looking at the graphic there, his tyres do look as if they're perhaps a bit colder than Addy Lizard, and clearly Addy's
and Glen's 81 has fell back as well. Oh yeah, after that moment at the first corner. Sorry about that.
It's alright, it's very exciting. It's hard to keep track of what's going on here at the moment in some cases, but Glenn will be looking to get back on terms here with the Mustang of MTLA in front of him, whereas up front Santu, he's doing a brilliant job, isn't he, at the moment? Optimus as well in his yellow livery, you mentioned it, Adam, which I must admit I've not paid attention to yet, so I'll have to take your word for it, because all I can see is just spray up ahead, so I can only assume... Oh wait, no, there we are. Yes, Optimus very kindly decorating his car in a high visibility jacket for us today, so we can actually keep an eye on it in these conditions, which is very considerate of the American.
Now, you see, I was going to make the analogy about it being a late 90s Jordan Formula 1 car with the black and yellow, but I think that works a whole lot better. The number 46 on the side of his car. Second position, can he catch up to Santu 929? Santu 929 and Optimus Prime, if you told me those two were going to be 1-2 at Silverstone back at Laguna Seca, I wouldn't have agreed with you on that. I would have said you're a bit crazy. But they've improved drastically over the last few rounds. Optimus Prime has come up from the midfield. Santu 99 has arguably come from further back, and these two are now bona fide front runners in the core Australian V8s. It's brilliant to see.
It is fantastic. Optimus clearly very happy there to let the back end of the Lexus slide around on him. He clearly feels... Oh,
that was a bit too much though, almost. It nearly snapped him.
Yeah, snatching a rear brake there, under braking for Brooklyn's corner, but he seems to be on top of it. The only good thing in these conditions is that your car will always be doing that, so you're pretty much going to be prepared for it. Every time you touch the brake, turn the steering wheel, get on the gas, anytime you go anywhere near any control, the car's going to want to escape from underneath you, so at least the conditions are consistent now. It's fully wet and has been for a few laps now, so the conditions are going to be a case of everyone knows what's going on now, and they'll be able to settle into it as we see Glenn here tackling Cop's Corner there, onto the old first corner of this track, into the modifications Adam mentioned back in 2010 there, and into the famous Maggots and Beckett section, into the fantastic series of corners if you get it right, which Glenn slithering his way through them right now.
Fantastic selection of corners if you get it right.
Yes,
the key word being if.
If you get it wrong, it can be particularly unpleasant, as you'll find yourself skating across the grass. Which, at least there's plenty of space out there to recover it all if you do get it wrong, which in these conditions is quite a possibility. But the top four that time round have made it all through there quite nicely. Addy back up to 5th place, as we mentioned, who seems to be enjoying these conditions a bit more now, as the top four is fairly static at the moment. There's a fair few seconds gap between each of them now, as clearly the spray and the general lack of grip is causing them some issues, and they can't get quite as close as they'd like to each other in these atrocious conditions out there. But you know, it's perhaps better to settle for a reasonable position now and regroup, have a go again in race 2 with a different strategy in mind, as Santu drifts it through Village corner there, as he now goes into the loop, which is the tightest corner now on this track. Not a particular favourite of mine, if I'm honest, as it always seems to either run wide as you then try and line up Aintree corner, which is there, as he now comes down the Wellington Straight, where Kimi Räikkönen had a rather colossal crash last year, for those who remember the British Grand Prix. Point he obviously punched a hole in the barrier. no such problem with that going to happen here, as of course it's not real. But the peril to the driver can still all be the same, though, as it will certainly put a big dent in your own race if you chuck it off there. But yeah, through Brook. Oh yeah, but normally you can get back on it pretty quickly. Luffield, I'm surprised we haven't seen more people have a problem around there this though, because it's a, as you can see, a very long radius right-hander, and we quite often see in many series of motorsport people pushing it a bit too much on the exit, and in these conditions these guys are looking after it very well actually, have not shot off towards the old pit lane, which you can sometimes see happen here, but no, they're clearly all mastering Luffield in these conditions, which is good to see. I imagine Woodcut's going to be something a bit of a surprise in these conditions, as well, as normally that's just an easy full flat out right-hander, but in these conditions again, if you're perhaps a bit too violent on the steering input, then that could spit you off towards the pit wall as well. But notice we see just a little sliver there from Optimus on the background, as we are now experiencing mild technical difficulties here, as the weather is clearly playing up with sort of TV recordings here. But no, we're back now with Killing Heidi.
Very high front nose on that Mercedes-Benz by the look of it.
Yes, it's like he's got a lot of reverse rake on that by the looks of it, which is a bit bizarre setup if he's gone that way, but perhaps we can just assume it's
then again,
thing.
WEC Season 3, we used to see Ford GTs from the front runners in the GT category with about 70,000 degrees of negative rear camber, and that clearly wasn't accurate. So maybe it's just problems with the display that we're getting from the game. Oh, look at that! It's full gas. Not getting display issues there because he has gone off at Maggots. Not as much of a big one as it was earlier on, but Full Gas having yet another moment. And look at how spread out the field is now. There must be at least 90 seconds between first and last position, so that would be a lap last time out at Brands Hatch. Very surprised to see It's Racing so far down the order. I would definitely have thought he'd be at least challenging for a podium position after his 3 victories last time out.
Yes, he's clearly not enjoying his conditions, as is that It's Racing over a little spin there down in Luffield. I was just praising everyone for their action in Luffield. On the track right there, I could swear I could see It's Racing point. Oh no, it's Santu there.
Oh, but look at this. Optimus Prime is right behind Santu 929. Lexus versus Lexus here. And it remains to be seen whether Santu will retain the position in the pressure. But look at that, he's gone out wide. He's taken out a cone and he has lost the position to Optimus Prime, who quite happily takes the lead. Could we see a debut victory for one of these drivers? It looks extremely likely. Question is, which one? At the moment, the balance is swaying in the favour of Optimus Prime.
Well, just as I was praising everyone for their ability to master Luffield in these conditions, I thought it was It's Racing as it was his name highlighted at the time, but no, it was our then leader Santu who'd had a bit of a half spin there going into Luffield. That did allow Optimus to get on the back of him. Clearly compromised and a bit flustered, Santu then ran it wide into Copped Corner, and as you said, Optimus didn't need a second invitation and slid his way through. But Santu appears to be getting to grips with things again now. He's going to hopefully challenge the American over the last couple of laps there to see if he can reclaim the lead he's held throughout this race. And
there's some sideways action from Optimus Prime there. He's definitely the most sideways driver out there on track, but it's paying off at the moment.
Yeah, backing it into Vale like he's on a MotoGP bike there. He's clearly got a delicate touch in these conditions.
So 99 there seems to sway off onto the outside, onto the inside of the straight there. Not sure if that was avoiding spray, but I would have thought he'd be too far back for that to really compromise him in any significant way.
Yeah, as I was saying, with the top bonnet camera that most of them would probably be running in these conditions, the spray's not going to be too big an issue. You've got quite a wide periphery of vision, you know, you can still see what's in front of it. It's not like you're inside the car with a crash helmet on. It's not as bad as that, but yeah, it's still very distracting when you've got very tricky conditions to deal with as well. So
he's got a bit of his toe here down the straight. He hasn't got enough of a toe though. Has to be careful under brakes because Optimus Prime was rather earlier on the brakes than Santu 99 there. Is Santu going to capitalise? He's up the inside. He takes the lead very briefly. The rear quarter panel of that Lexus now looks a bit different as Santu 99 made a little bit of contact with it. They're on the run past the old pit straight and Santu has the lead back again. I think those two maybe can't see each other because there's a lot of panel bashing there and it's not exactly correct looking as such.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of touring car action going on here in quite the extreme, but as I say, if they can't see each other, it's fantastic. They haven't taken each other off yet. If they can, this is brilliant stuff for Santu. Has the upper edge at the moment, and what a brilliant fight this is going on, even if they can or can't see each other. It's fantastic one way or the other. Clearly the bright orange Lexus, the bright yellow Lexus, they're all clearly visible to us in these conditions, which is all we really need to focus on.
We've got fluorescent Lexuses and both drivers think they're winning, so that can't be good for the guy in second place. At the moment that's Optimus Prime. He'll probably put in the chat after this one, good race, thanks for letting me win, or something on those lines, and then Santu will say, I'm sorry, what? So there might be a bit of post-race confusion, but there's no confusion for us because we can see that Santu 929 is leading this one, but there is one lap to go. The question is, can Optimus Prime respond without knowing that he has to respond?
Well, he'll be completely unaware really of what's going on around him, and this is going to be bad for both of them because the bit of contact in the last lap there has allowed MTLA to catch up, so all it will take is one more major bit of contact between the pair of them, and it's going to, as we see it, there's Optimus gliding around the outside there of Abby. That was brave of him. He didn't even realise what was going on most likely. MTLA there is going to be looking to see what is to do next to try and catch up on the pair of them, and yeah, this is thrilling stuff.
And there's Santu up the inside, doesn't get the move, doesn't make the move, although he's not really making a move. It's very difficult to commentate on this one, but Optimus Prime still has the lead. Can he hold it off until the next time they cross the finish line? Of course, he will see the checkered flag as it is the final lap. We still have very, very wet conditions here. Santu 929, the car stepping out on him a bit there. It is a time trial, really, that we're seeing unfolding before us. And at the moment, Optimus Prime is winning, but Santu is very close indeed. This is almost like British touring cars, although it's a bit scarier and a lot more hairy.
Yeah, I'll say Santu, he runs a much tighter line into and out of left field, and Optimus tends to run it a bit wider, and that's what's allowing Santu each time to get around the inside of him. As we see it again in Cop's corner, they are literally swapping
quite
paint.
A spectacle this is. Optimus Prime's car buckling left and right there. Santu 929 now has the lead. Optimus Prime using a different line, that gives him the lead once more, but Santu 929 almost taking it back. It looks as though Optimus Prime may just have this one, but of course it's so difficult to tell. Santu 99 once again with the better exit takes the lead down again on the approach to Stowe. Is he going to have the better run through these last corners? Optimus Prime deeper once again, looks as if he's gone out quite wide there, but he's pulled it off just about, and he has a better run now, so he takes the position. Optimus Prime might just be able to take the win here. That's the last real deep acceleration zone, but he's gone deep into the braking zone there. Who's going to take this victory? It's Santu, it's Optimus. No one knows who it is. They're about to cross the line. Optimus has the position. Optimus takes the win.
Santu's
fired off the barriers. Does that mean that MTLA is going to end up taking second place? It does. That must be incredibly disappointing for Santu, and I have to wonder whether he knows what just happened to him.
If he doesn't know what has happened to him, that is a cruel bit of justice, as that was fantastic racing on that final lap there. Just side by side through Maggots and Beckett's for crying out loud. That was brilliant.
And everyone wants each other, please.
Yes, if that's the kind of racing we get, if no one can see each other, then I think blindfolding will be mandatory from this point onwards in cause. But
season 2, blindfolds.
Yes, that would make for something, wouldn't it? There, but Yeah, MTLA, he was sitting behind waiting to see if something was going to go off between those two. It did. It was the final corner. It was on the exited club. I think Santu was pushed just a bit too wide. Probably didn't even realise it was going on. Well, it'd have felt a force. He just would not have known what was coming from it. And yeah, unfortunately spat across into the pit lane wall, and a rather cruel end to him there. But Optimus taking his first win there in magnificent fashion in the end. Glenn, rather solid fourth there after not quite getting to grips with these conditions as we thought he might do. Addy Lizard, good drive to fifth in the end there. It's Racing, clearly not enjoying these conditions, coming home in sixth, and Full Gas and Killing Heidi rounding out the top eight from that race then. So
the question is though, Glenel's 81 had that big mistake in the first sector about halfway through the race. If he hadn't done that, Santu's mistakes in the latter third would have definitely given the Scotsman the win. But unfortunately, that was not the case.
Yeah, I don't think Glenn was ever quite close enough to capitalise that much, because he only lost a few seconds when he'd run wide at Farm Corner, but it would have certainly been a lot closer there, and perhaps Santu would have been robbed of his podium altogether. We'll never know. All we know what did happen there was that they were knocking 7 bells out of each other for about 2 laps, and Optimus came out on top there. So clearly a fluorescent yellow car is what you need in these conditions.
The high-vis jacket paying off there. And I believe what we're going to have between these two races is Optimus Crime and Santu 929 leaving the lobby, and they'll be starting from the back. So I'm not aware whether they'll be able to see each other again after that one. I kind of hope they do, because if they could do so well blindfolded, I'd love to see the two of them battle through the field with full visibility. That remains to be seen as the race is about to get underway here at Silverstone. Race 2 of the core Australian V8 Supercars from Silverstone, our second venture in England, our second venture in the good old United Kingdom. Can you imagine these cars in Knock Hill? Polyphony Digital, that is a hint, and take it as such. MTLA in pole position here, obviously inheriting that after Optimus and Santu have been put to the back of the grid. They're underway already. Some of them seem to creep a bit there, and look at that. We can already see Santu and Optimus cannot see each other. That must be terrifying for everyone else. But Glenel's 81 has taken the lead in the early going from It's Racing, and MTLA has fallen back to 5th. He's done exactly the same start as Addy Lizard did last time out. Fell halfway down the field. We have not seen Ben Crow return either. Optimus Prime already up to 3rd, but Glenel's with a commanding lead at the moment. And the top two from, the people who are battling for the first position last time out are already making great waves through the field. But Glenel's has the early lead from It's Racing, Optimus Prime and pole sitter MTLA. Will MTLA be able to recover from that bad start?
I don't think so. Santu's gone past him into Brooklyn's corner, as we saw. Addy Lizard, unless he's gone deep, he might be able to hang around the outside here. Oh, no, the Australian does not.
That was a Jason Plato manoeuvre, that was from MTLA. Santu 929 there being pushed off onto the AstroTurf. Oh, look at that. That was It's Racing. It's Racing off on the inside. That was a big moment there when I was at the British Grand Prix in 2008. Felipe Massa did exactly the same thing. Hopefully that comforts It's Racing, although I think it probably won't, because he's down from 2nd to 8th. I don't think he was assisted in that one either.
In these conditions, it's quite easy to just do it on your own, but even easier if someone does give you a little tap as well. As we saw originally going into the loop, Santu and Addy Lizard. Santu was already getting several pushes off the track there by Addy, and clearly got no better down into Brooklyn's corner. He's managed to recover the situation now, and in 4th place, as it's Glenn who seems to be improving this time around in these conditions. You would think, being Scottish, he'd be used to them, but clearly it's not to stereotype, of course, but he's obviously gone away, worked on his setup a little bit, and come back strong this time around as Optimus back up into 2nd place. And I'm sure Santu will be following him through shortly, as we'll hopefully get a replay of the fascinating climax we had to race 1. But it's Glenn at the moment who's in control.
Glenn is in control at the moment, as you say. Scotsman in his home weather conditions, as it were. He'd be happy enough if it started snowing. He'd be happy enough if we decided to run a reverse configuration for race 3, as of course Knock Hill now do that. They got a license not so long ago to run the track in reverse, which I can only imagine is incredibly disorientating for those who compete in the Scottish Motor Racing Club events, such as the Scottish Minis and Formula Fords. But Glenelg's 81 here with a brilliant and commanding early lead from Optimus Prime. But as we saw last time out, Optimus Prime has a knack of decreasing gaps at a rapid rate around here in these conditions. And MTLA is not far behind either, nor is Santu 929.
Yeah, but Glenn's pulling away from them at the moment. So around lap 2, he's already got what looks to be about 2.5, maybe 3 seconds of a lead there. Back to your comments we're making there about Knock Hill there, Adam. Of course, I can't imagine people get totally confused running Knock Hill either way. I mean, it's only, what, 200 yards long, if that. So, you know, it's not a very long track. It's not a very big track, is it? It's still a fantastic track, and it would be amazing.
Look at this. That was Killing Heidi being pushed off, I think, by Full Gas 62. I don't think that was an unaided spin there. That did look as though there had been some clattering between the two Mercedes. You got to hope that both of them got off that one without any damage, but Full Gas looks even twitchier than usual, and It's Racing was lucky to get out of that one. He's now between the two Mercedes, while his teammate MTLA is between the two fluorescent Lexuses.
Yeah, so at least there's plenty of runoff down there into Brooklyn's corner, so any mishaps like that, normally you can get away with it. And in these conditions, cars will slide more than actually sort of bump and damage each other, as we see.
MTLA looks to have a good run along the Hanger Straight. Sorry to cut you off there, but he might make an outbraking manoeuvre into Stowe. That would be very brave. He's done it before the entrance to the turn, but then Optimus Prime takes it right back. He's going around the outside, but MTLA has the inside. Optimus Prime has managed to hold his own and now has the inside going into the final chicane. Can MTLA make the cutback? It's a very difficult section, but Santu there up the inside of MTLA. It's all happening here between the two Lexuses and that Pride Tech Motorsports Ford with the distinctive yellow wheels. That would be 4 high-vis jackets wrapped around his rims, as It's Racing has done exactly the same thing he did in the first race and gone off on the inside of Stowe Corner.
Yes, he's clearly not enjoying Stowe Corner in these conditions, as we saw with MTLA and Optimus. Yeah, so there's clearly a couple of drivers who still aren't quite adjusted to these conditions today. Whereas we saw with Optimus and MTLA that they compromised each other so much with all that trying to get the switch back on each other. It did allow Santu to close back up and blessed Glenn with an even bigger lead than he originally had. So he's probably quite enjoying what's going on behind him if he can actually see it.
Yes, of course, so much spray that you can't really see what's going on. Santu 929 though, still very close behind MTLA. It looks as if Optimus Prime may have got away somewhat in the first sector. You can still just about see him from this brilliant sweeping camera angle. Santu 929 going deep into the corner. He's going to try and get a better run off the corner. We saw him doing that very effectively in the Battle of Invisibility towards the end of the first race. And is he going to be able to make the same move now as he goes along the old pit straight, now the national pit straight? I don't think so. He didn't quite have enough run on MTLA there. There was too much gap. MTLA on for a podium. He'll take that very nicely on his return. 2 podiums from 2. Can he make it 3 from 3? He has to get through this race first. And It's Racing is getting through the white Mercedes at a rapid rate of knots. They're helping him, I admit, but he is up to 6th place from 8th within 2 laps.
Yes, so back to Santu. He's got a very delicate touch around Luffield. He holds it tight and can get good traction off the corner. And we've seen him a couple of times now taking large chunks out of people through that section alone. So if he can line up MTLA next time round, he might be able to use that as an advantage to try and get a good slingshot down the national straight towards Copse Corner. But we've seen the Mustang still perhaps has a bit of an edge on a straight line, as we've already seen. Actually see MTLA closing back on Optimus really quickly. So it's toing and throwing here in these conditions. No one seems to have an advantage over the entire track. It's a case of someone's faster in a certain sector, someone then loses it again, as we now see I think Optimus had quite a good run through Vale and Club there. It's allowed him to put out a bit of a breather, but of course as they go into Abbey, the fun starts all over again, and it's a different sector this time round. All the fast sweep, well, 2 fast sweeps in the form of Abbey and Farm, which in dry conditions can be flat out in certain cars. I don't think it'd be the case with these, but obviously in the wet weather, it's
a word to Addy Lizard here, sorry. Addy Lizard in 5th place. He's still very much within range of that 3-way battle. If anything, it's a 4-way battle. Addy Lizard putting on his best performance of the year so far.
Yeah, he's obviously enjoying these conditions as well. We saw it towards the end of race 1, didn't we, where he'd got the better of its racing and has done so again. So he's obviously enjoying these conditions around here today, and maybe he can spring a surprise later on in this one.
Perhaps so, but MTLA there on the inside of Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime getting the better run off the corner with his line there, so that was almost a move. I thought we were going to have some more quarter panel on quarter panel action there, but that is not the case. These 3 a bit more spread out than they were this time last lap. Addy Lizard has also lost a bit of ground, but Optimus Prime does seem to be at risk of losing the position to MTLA here.
Yeah, he's had a good run through Cop's Corner that time round. As
that's
MTLA.
A very good run. Is it too good? Almost too good, because that was nearly the rear end of a Lexus being hit rather hard by the front end of a Ford. Not sure he would have come off best there. I dare say the American medal would have punted off the Toyota luxury brands buttocks and remainder. MTLA in 3rd position though, he does definitely want that 2nd place because he's making all of the right moves. That would be 2 2nd places in a row, as I said. But of course he still has to get past Optimus Prime, and these 2 can actually see each other, and that excites me because we've already seen how good Optimus Prime is in the rain, and now he's got an opponent who can see him, but an opponent that keeps almost smashing into the back of him.
Yes, I think he's getting caught out by how early Optimus is having to brake for some of these slow speed corners, and of course we saw him take a rather substantial chunk out of him going into Maggots and Beckett's as Club Corner. It can't be very easy in these conditions on the exit trying to put all that power down, and things clearly are tricky out there than we suspect as MTLA again sliding it through Abbey Corner. So what are we now, half distance? Clearly still plenty of time to make a critical mistake here, but Glenn seems to be mastering it still, quite comfortably in the lead now, letting you squabble behind him, and he's just doing his own thing out in the lead now to the tune of it's just dancing it in these conditions, isn't it? It's not out of control, he's just letting it do what it wants to do and no more, channeling it, we'd say, in these conditions, not really forcing it to do what it doesn't want to do. He's just letting it glide its way around, and it's serving him in good stead now, as he's going to let these others.
Santu 929 off wide, taking out another cone. We saw him do that in race 1 as well. I think perhaps a hatred of cones has been embedded in Santu after the first GT Academy round. Addy Lizard up the inside, Santu 99 wide again. I'm not sure if he still had grass on his tyres there because he got sideways once more. I noticed this crate with Santu 929. Once he's made one mistake, it does tend to breed others. It takes him a little while to get back into the rhythm of things.
Yes, it can throw you off if you make one mistake, and particularly on wets as well. If you deviate off the track, it's going to really compromise the grip, as he almost dropped it coming out of Cop's Corner there, which would not have endeared him anymore, particularly if it had slid all the way to the barrier. It's not too far to get it to the inside barrier there on the exit of Cop's Corner, so it's quite easy to do, particularly in the wet as it is today. But Addy Lizard, he's looking at a potential podium here if MTLA and Optimus can start scrapping amongst each other, giving him a chance to catch up there. So let's see what Santu can do now, if he can.
Ooh, that's a big oversteery moment there for MTLA. You saw the opposite lock being applied in buckets. He just managed to hold on.
Yeah, it looks scathed. He goes to Stowe. They're clearly struggling into and out of Stowe today, and it's a bit off camera's Stowe Corner, which is probably what's exaggerating these out of control tendencies, as we see it again slithering around the back end of that Ford Mustang there, and it's what's dropping him away these little mistakes from the back of Optimus, so want to sort of smooth those out a little bit or come under pressure pretty soon from Addy Lizard.
Yes, I do believe he will come under pressure soon. Addy Lizard could be on for his first ever podium here if he keeps this up, but he does have to rely on MTLA having a few more moments like that where he's twitchy, and he also has to rely on the Australian not having the car control to handle it. Every time we see that Mustang enter or indeed exit a corner, it's very, very twitchy indeed.
Well, if we're to believe stereotypes, then Australia is sunny all the time and it doesn't rain, so these guys have probably never seen any rain as we have a look in there. So who knows, perhaps they've just never seen it before, but two of them seem to have taken very well to it here. Does that look to be... sorry, I thought it looked... is that a back mark there? I wasn't sure. It looked as if Optimus was a bit closer to Glenn than I first thought, but I think it's just the accordion effects we're getting in Luffield today, as it's a bit slow through the middle of it and getting on the power on the exit there. But nope, still as we are, the top 5 covered by what's sort of the gap between Maggots and Cops at the moment, with the top the second group 4, second down to 5th, all covered by a few seconds at the moment. So I suspect we'll see some swapping of positions as we have Santu trying to get back onto terms there with Addy Lizard. As we go on board now with Killing Heidi, let's talk around. Oh wait, I was going to talk around a lap there, but let's view Full Gas, who looks to be going sideways there around Brooklyn's corner. So someone else who's obviously not enjoying these conditions. So we seem to have 2 Australians enjoying these conditions and 3 who don't seem to be enjoying it too much. And we've got a happy Scotsman in the lead who does probably enjoy these conditions.
The happy Scotsman indeed. He's been given the lottery ticket. He's put all his chips down and he's run away with it, quite frankly. He has a big lead over the second place driver. Of course, that is Optimus Crime, as we see the track slowly rendering as its racing goes down the Hangar Straight. It's racing, obviously, one of the 3 Australians is perhaps not a duck taking to water, more a brick.
Yes. Well, the thing with Gran Turismo is I've made this comment before, and it's something which particularly annoyed me over the course of my time when I was racing on it, was the various updates they kept bringing to the game, changing the physics of it, you know, how cars drove and the feel you got. It used to be when it first came out, I thought the wet weather was very manageable. You could actually drive around quite comfortably. Then over a series of updates over a few months, to the point where we're in the middle of season 3 of the WEC, for me, it just completely ruined wet weather driving, and cars became completely undrivable so far as I was concerned. So clearly, Gran Turismo decided they wanted
Santu
to.
99, sorry, going around the outside there. Not sure if he's overcooked it or not. He hasn't. That was a very good round the outside maneuver there on Addy Lizard, who did seem to be taking things rather conservatively. Santu 929 up to 4th. Can he challenge for a podium by the end? Can Addy Lizard fight back after that round the outside move at Brooklands? And back to your point about wet weather driving, I'm going to warn you now, if you ever have a PC setup, never play Grand Prix Legends. I hear it's like trying to ice skate a mid-60s Formula 1 car.
Ooh, sounds precarious, and we'll take care of that when we do. I'm not sure what happened with Addy there. He looked very slow going into Brooklyn, so not sure if he had a bit of a compromised exit coming onto the Wellington Straight, and he never quite got up to speed in time before Brooklands and Santu just swept rather majestically around the outside of him, which is very beautiful of him. As we still see the battle between MTLA and Optimus is pretty stagnant at the moment. The gap's sort of not coming down, it's not increasing, so perhaps MTLA's reached the limit of what he can do within his limited field of visibility there. As a few seconds back to Santu, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do over these last 2 laps, as we're running out of time here if he wants to do anything. Ooh. As he was tight going into Vale there, and that swung the back end round as he was trying not to run into the back of the American there. So he's taking some risks in these conditions. It seems very late on the brakes, and perhaps that's catching him out sometimes with how early the Lexus having to brake.
Yeah, we saw Santu 929 in the other Lexus being caught out on a couple of occasions. by the braking zones of Optimus Prime in the first race. Of course, he didn't know that because he couldn't see Optimus Prime, but to us, at least visually, Santu was being much deeper on the brake pedal than Optimus. But Glenal's 81 doesn't have to worry into running about worrying. I'll try that again. Glenal's 81 doesn't have to worry about running into the back of everyone, purely because it's such a long layout that he doesn't have to worry about many bat markers. And, well, he's run away with it, so he's got no chance of having anyone in front of him.
Yep, clear track, no spray, which is just what you want around here. He can set his own pace, do what he wants, and not have to worry about any spray disrupting his rhythm. Whereas up to the others to sort of deal with these conditions. So we've still got a lap and a half to go, though. You never know what could happen here. So let's keep an eye on the situation.
Yeah, he did drop it in race one about halfway through under pressure. And, well, will he make such a mistake again? All on his own. I'd like to think that the N24 veteran and WEC veteran as well would be able to keep it on track, but of course the wet weather can catch out even the Scotsman.
Well, he showed in Monza his ability to keep his head when he was perhaps, in out of position when he was leading, when the Mustangs were faster on that day. Of course, very different conditions and a different track altogether than Monza, but still a challenge in its own. And he's shown most of the time he can keep a level head. He makes the occasional mistake, but in these challenging conditions, it's a case of who makes the least mistakes, and it's been him today as we see Optimus slithering his way through Stowe Corner there. Clearly, it's probably the fastest way in these conditions, as you have very little control. Santu, I think he's closed up a little bit, hasn't he? But I don't think he's got enough laps left to actually challenge these two, so he's probably looking for fourth at the moment, unless there's a last lap error of some sort from one of the top three. And
in MTLA there, we saw the rear end of the car guiding it through the last corner there, so a moment could come.
Yeah, as we say, anything could still happen in this one, as we've seen a lot of Larry moments coming out of Club Corner all race long, so it's nothing new really to see the Mustang slithering around as it is, as Optimus looking good then for another top two finish. Not quite as good as race one, obviously, but he's been just as consistent, just without Santu in him a lot of the time, as we saw towards the end of race one. So a bit of a different challenge this time around for him, but he's handled it rather well. And who knows, still 2/3 of a lap to go here. Anything could still happen, as we as a rather famous character of Formula 1 used to say. As
that's Santu off again. That's almost identical to the mistake he made earlier on, and yet again Addy Lizard
contact that time.
That has to be big damage there as Santu drifts off. Not sure what happened there. I think that's a disconnection by the way the car floated straight off the track afterwards. Indeed it is. He is off track and out. I was about to make the comment that he's off the podium for the first time in 5 races. Obviously the last 4 races, including the previous 3 at Brands Hatch, he was on the podium. So I was going to say he's going to be disappointed with 4th place. He's going to be even more disappointed with the DNF. But Addy Lizard, not sure about the damage he has, but he could be on for 4th place.
He could be here, as it could still be better. Yes, as Optimus and MTLA are closer than ever now as they come down the hangar straight. Yeah, Addy Lizard, I wouldn't say he chopped in front of Santu there, but obviously Santu ran it wide in Brooklands, lost the initiative then going into Luffield, and I think perhaps failed to realise that Addy was going down the inside of him, as it's still incredibly close. This could be a bit of a hand down the brakes here from MTLA going into the Vale and Club Complex. It's impossible to see in the spray, but is it almost a spin from Optimus there, but he's going to hold it, isn't he? Yeah, yes. He looks to have the better the situation here, as I think Glenn, his lead looks a bit reduced there, but he's powered over the line for a win nonetheless, as Optimus takes 2nd, and MTLA still couldn't quite do it at the end there, has to settle for 3rd, and a good 4th place potentially from Addy Lizard at the moment, as he's not crossed the line just yet.
No, it hasn't quite crossed the line, just approaching the front straight again now. blasts along the front straight to the finish line to pick up his 4th place. It's racing next across the line, due next across the line at least, with a 5th position for him. The bad weekend continues, and of course this all has championship ramifications because It's Racing is a title front runner, particularly after his Brands Hatch performance. This is not the performance of a championship front runner. He's having a very difficult time of things here at Silverstone.
Yeah, Glenn, of course, missed out on the race at Brands Hatch, and this win today, coupled with It's Racing's mediocre results, is going to help reduce that deficit that he lost at Brands Hatch. So it's good for Glenn. It'll be good for the championship in that perspective. But yeah, obviously, It's Racing, it's a bit of damage limitation now, isn't it, as to what he's going to do in race 3 to see if he can sort of halt this slide he's having at the moment. But he'll bounce back at the next race, even if he doesn't get it all together here at Silverstone. I'm sure he'll still leave here with a championship lead, as of course Glenn picked up nothing at all at Brands and he got the clean sweep of wins there. So it's a case of how much is he going to lose, I think, by the end of this one.
Yes, definitely. And of course, there is no reverse grid system or anything of that nature for him to take advantage of, mostly because he's also in the midfield as well, so it would make no real difference to him even if there was. It's just not been a good weekend for It's Racing so far, and he's got to make sure that next time out he's out of the gates and doing well for himself immediately, because as you say, you can't see It's Racing putting on a good show in this 3rd race unless he's really figured out the track, because quite simply doesn't seem to be able to keep the car on the straight and narrow out there. It'll also be very interesting to see whether Santu makes it back out for this 3rd race that's going to get underway very shortly.
Yes, if he does, he'll be starting from the back again, as of course as we saw in race 1. So unfortunately, after his incidents in race 1, he's going to start from the back each time, unfortunately, make things more and more difficult for himself. But we've seen so far that a feisty first lap can see people gain many places by the time they get to start lap 2. So let's see what's going to happen then in this one.
Yes, let's see. The rain is falling once again. We do not have Santu 929 on the grid. Just been pointed out that Glenhouse will probably drop the Brands Hatch round, since you can drop a round before the Enduros. But we are underway here, and he's dropped positions because Optimus Prime has had an amazing start there, straight out of the blocks, taken the lead, and Glenhouse 81, the car's rear end stepping out on him in a big way. Addy Lizard up to 3rd place. This is there's already been a bit of a jumble there in the order, and we've seen that on every single start so far. We've also seen MTLA having another bad start. Glenhouse very, very drifty there. Looks like he spooked Addy Lizard, because Addy Lizard has fallen back, and Glenn is just insanely sideways there in the Mercedes. I'm not sure how he hasn't crashed it yet.
Yeah, he was struggling with cold tyres off the line there, wasn't he? And then I think Addy Lizard gave him a bit of a punch going into the loop, and that's what unsettled him. And then coming round Aintree corner, he seems to have gotten on top at the moment, and it's Addy who's actually dropped back a bit from that adventure. As the 2 Mustangs have taken advantage, and It's Racing up into 3rd at the moment. Be interested to see if we can hold on to that. As MTLA hold on to 4th.
Someone who hasn't been able to hold on to it is Full Gas 62, who unhelpfully takes out one of the signs letting you know where you're going next. But he definitely didn't hold on to that one. Well, he's almost going again there. Not having fun behind the wheel of the Mercedes, down to 7th place already. Doesn't look like he'll be advancing terribly much, because he's struggling.
Someone who isn't struggling is Optimus Prime, once again the American taking advantage of these conditions, as It's Racing does appear to have learnt this time around. He's looking quite competitive at the moment. He's latched onto the back of Glenn through Maggott and Beckett down the hanger straight here. Will he get the toe and have a run at him into Stowe corner? He's well placed, isn't he, in the spray there. Not sure Glenn will see it coming. The Merc's got enough punch that it seems to keep away from the Mustang. Yeah, he's pulled away there, actually, quite surprising there. So in fact, he's been having a look at Optimus going into Stowe corner there. Don't think he'd have done anything there as he was too far back, but that was quite surprising to see the Mercedes pull away from the Mustang in such a fashion. Clearly the balance of power change that was made recently has reined in the Mustang's advantage. It had quite a lot there, and the Merc good down the straights, which will help him a bit in these conditions, try and pull away from the Mustang. But as we've seen already, a slip and a slide in one corner, and people will be having a go into the next. So interesting dynamic we've got going here, but good to see it's racing in a feisty mood and on top of the conditions now.
Yeah, it's very good to see feisty drivers, particularly in these wet conditions. No Chevrolet Camaros out this time. However, you can see the balance of performance is now to its absolute optimum. Every car out here is incredibly even. And of course, we also have an incredibly high standard of driver out here. It's racing. Suddenly found a bit of wet weather form by the looks of it. Third position so far. Commentators curse. Don't do that. That was almost a big spin there.
Yeah, he had a bit of an issue there coming onto the Wellington straight, putting the power down, held it all together as avoid losing third place to his teammate there. Yeah, as we say, no Camaros this weekend, which Memto was kicking himself over because he felt quite boisterous about his chances in these conditions, as the Camaro in testing looked incredibly fast there in those conditions, up to 25% faster than the other cars at various points in the wet weather conditions. Unlucky he's not here today, as he'd have been revelling in this, but we've got quite a fight on irregardless without the Camaros. Optimus looking to pull away a little bit as Glenn and It's Racing and MTLA are starting to squabble a bit over second place.
And just for maths fans, my good friend Tom Chorley meant 2.5%. 25% advantage at a 1 minute 30 lap would be entirely absurd, I am aware. Optimus Prime, though, he's probably made a gain of about 25% over Glenhow's 81. You saw Glenhow's making a move towards the end of the hangar straight last time by, but there's now a massive gap between Optimus and Glenn, so there's clearly been progress for the Lexus driver in the high-vis jacket special edition. He's very leery into that Stowe corner, though, isn't he?
He is. They all seem to have been in this race, though. Seems to be a pattern developing of whoever can get into the lead at the start and control the pace of the race, and of course crucially keep a clear track in front of them. It's them who's then taken the initiative and got out a bit of a lead so far. We've not yet seen anyone challenge straight away to get the lead back from someone, as obviously it's taking a while for people to settle down and adjust to these conditions, but those who hit the front early on make hay whilst they can. And Optimus, who he hasn't yet managed to storm away with a race, has he? He had to fight with Sansu at the end of race 1 to get the lead off him, as we saw. Yes, even though he did not know it, I'm sure perhaps he would have felt it in the force that he was fighting Sansu. Perhaps let's assume there's some Jedi mastery going on at work here, and they knew what they were doing, which would be even more spectacular. But as we see, I think
that's
spinning
it,
background.
Racing dropping it there. We saw him having a big moment last time around, and this time it's just stepped out a little too far for him, and he's going to fall back to 5th place, killing Heidi, the only man behind him. We've seen Full Gas drop off. Probably had enough after that terrible opening lap. Can't blame him really. In Glenhow's 81 almost following suit, we're seeing a lot of snap oversteer here. These conditions not forgiving too much power application.
No, I think now it's the last race of the day. People are starting to get a bit more adventurous with what they're doing on track. And yes, It's Racing got out a step on the lap before coming out of Aintree corner, and pushed it just a bit too far this time round and pirouetted around rather majestically. Unfortunately, you don't get points in this for majestic driving. You get points for keeping up the track and going quickly and overtaking people. So we thought he'd conquered his problems with these conditions, but sadly no, they come back to bite him once again. And as things stand, it'd be surprising if he could get back on terms with Addy Blizzard, but perhaps he's looking again for just another solid 5th place to consolidate his championship lead, whereas Glenn wants to take the win away from Optimus here to redeem the Brands Hatch results. Whether he doesn't take the points or not, he'll want to do well on his return, as Optimus of course been in the top 2 in every race so far, so he wanted to keep that trend up and perhaps take a brace of wins today would be fantastic for him. now that unfortunately we lost Santu. But yeah, Glenn, perhaps will bide his time now, wait till a bit later on and try and mount a serious challenge then, as we'll see once again what MTLA can do here. See if he can close in and spring a surprise on these two. We've still got 6 laps to go, including this one, I believe, unless my maths is incorrect. We have laps to go, that's all we need to know.
Tom Chorley there, showing us exactly why he is a D student in maths. Glenelg's 81
I have
in
a
second
degree, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, that means something. Glenelg's 81 in second position, and he's almost doing an it's racing moment there. Everyone getting very adventurous, as you said a couple of minutes ago. The adventurousness of these drivers has been increasing gradually throughout the 3 races today, and I think we're going to see some cars spinning by the end of this one.
Yes, it seems in each race we have a different corner catching people out each time. In race 1 it was Stowe, wasn't it? In race 2 it seems to be Luffield getting the better of people. This time round it's Aintree coming onto Wellington Straight that people are having a bit of a problem with, and as long as Glenn doesn't totally repeat what it's racing does and spits it towards the wall next time round, hopefully Glenn will learn from that and apply what he's learned to better effect and close up on Optimus next time round.
Perhaps so, as some of the core HQ getting very, very, very loud in the background. I think something's happened in the back that, well, I'm not entirely sure of, so we'll ignore them and we'll focus on the brilliant race going on here on track. Glenelg's 81 in second position. Oh, I wouldn't want to be driving that Mercedes. I can't handle cars that snappy. I'd need a different setup.
Yeah, so I don't fancy these conditions in an LMP car, let alone in these, so they're earning, well, they're not earning money unfortunately, but if they were earning money they'd be earning it well and truly today. But they're earning our respect for what they're doing out there, as it's been wet all the way through, hasn't it? There's been no dry conditions to try and take some advantage of. It's just been, I think apart from the first couple of laps where it was getting up to full wet conditions, it's been 100% all the way through so far, and it's been as tricky as you could want it. I mean, I couldn't hack it after an hour driving this race in season 3 of Core, and yeah, fair play to these guys who've managed to hang it out for this long. But especially it's racing, because it does get quite infuriating when you keep throwing it off the road, particularly if you don't understand why you keep chucking it off the road, as I think Addy will realise what's gone on there, with a bit too much eagerness with his right foot to get on the power there, coming down the do you call that the international pit straight now there, Adam, or is it got a different, I think it is the international pit straight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the international pit straight. Sometimes I refer to it as the wing, other times I just refer to it as the front straight. It has many personas. However, we all know that it's where the finish line is, as
I think
MTLA
Glenn's made a mistake.
Yes, Glenn must have made a mistake, because MTLA has taken second position. As they're just exiting Brooklands now, I'm going to hazard a guess that Glenelg's got loose once again on the approach to the straight, which name I've conveniently forgotten. So
Wellington.
We'll ignore that. What, did you just come up with the name?
The Wellington Straight.
Wellington Straight. I knew it was something very proud and very British.
Yes.
Glenelg's 81 not finding the traction on the approach to that straight, and has lost second place. Will he be able to regain it before the end of this one? Judging by the way he's already falling back, I'm perhaps saying no.
Yeah, we've seen it so far, people, haven't we? Who've made mistakes tend to then...
Ooh,
Oh, this is a big
one.
drift into Maggots there. A big drift deal. That confirms really that he perhaps went off coming onto the Wellington Straight, because we saw him really out of control coming out of Luffield, which would normally be the indication that someone's already got quite ragged and they're trying to get back and control their tyres. It's incredible how easily these things are unsettled, and it takes a few corners to get back into the rhythm of things, or sometimes a couple of laps. MTLA though looks very close to Optimus now, so clearly the situation has changed dramatically here. Could we see a Mustang claim a victory today, which would be surprising given the form he's shown so far? But he looks to be closing in on the American in the lead here, so perhaps we are in for a bit of a showdown now in these final 4 laps.
It would be good for Pride Tech Motorsports to take a victory this weekend after the trio of wins last time out. If anything, just to show that, throw their hat in the ring, say, hey, we're still here. MTLA is the man who's going to be able to do it with them if anyone can. But Optimus Crime, is standing in his way just over 3 laps for the American driver to fend off the Australian in the Mustang. Will the Australian be able to make his way past? Will he be able to cope with the early braking of Optimus? Will he have learnt his lesson from the first race and just launch it up the inside in order to take the position? It all remains to be seen, and we're going to find the answer. We might be handed the answer early if they keep going that deep into the corners, because every time they enter corners such as Brooklands and Copse, I'm convinced they're going to go wide. I have no idea how they're keeping it on track.
I think it's a deliberate line, isn't there, taking particularly into Brooklands, perhaps looking for some grip around the outside there. Unseen and unnoticed by us previously, It's Racing has dispatched of Addy Lizard up into 4th place now, so I'm not sure if that was a mistake by Addy there, or if It's Racing has just got on with the job and sorted himself out a bit there. But what with Glenn's...
we're seeing another mistake there.
It's
Racing has heard that we hadn't seen his move first time round and decided, I'll show you again, because he's now back down to 5th place, and he has it all to do here. With just 3 laps left to go, he has to go round Addy Lizard again, and if he did genuinely do that to impress us, then he needs his head examined, quite frankly.
Yes, I don't think he would have done it deliberately, but he'd minimised the points deficit. He was going to lose to Glenn there, because of course it was only going to be 3rd versus 4th place, whereas now he's going to lose a few more points here, unless Glenn drops it again. But we'll monitor the action here this time. I'll make sure we keep an eye on what's going on between Addy and It's Racing then, as this fight for 4th place goes on, as Killing Heidi in a very lonely 6th place, isn't he, right there coming down the national pit straight at the moment towards Copse Corner, has got no one to play with out there.
No playmates at all. Billy No Mates out there, around 25 to 30 seconds back from It's Racing at Addy Lizard. It's Racing, as we said, potentially losing more points to Glenelg's 81. And this is one very captivating battle in this core Australian V8 Supercars Championship in terms of the points table. And I think it'll be right down to the wire between those two for the honours. Look at the lap times there for MTLA and Glenelg's, both of them on a 2-minute 24.52. So very, very closely matched out there on track.
Yeah, just 5 milliseconds between them on that last lap, which in these conditions, I'm surprised really. I thought we were going to have more variation in that, although of course Glenn just getting back up to speed, isn't he, after his misdemeanor the lap before. But it's impressive. The top 3, they're all separated only by about 3/10 on the previous lap, but I think Optimus being the beneficiary there. But very close times in these conditions, which is surprising, clearly demonstrating the talents of all 3 of them up there in the lead, even if they are making the odd mistake here and there. On the whole, as looks as if Glenn was heading off towards Northamptonshire there, as he took a very wide line going around the outside of Woodcut Corner, which I did mention earlier, that it becomes a bit more challenging in these conditions instead of its typical, hug the inside, flat out right-handed it is. It's clearly something a bit more tricky in these conditions, and Glenn perhaps experimenting with lines there to find the easiest solution to the problem of woodcut in these conditions.
I'm going to reveal a quick story here now. I'm not going to be thanked for this, but core CEO Memto89 was having a conversation with me a couple of weeks ago. Asked me, what county is Northampton in? Northamptonshire was obviously the answer. Glenelg's wanted to provide a visual demonstration of where Northampton is there. Didn't quite manage to pull it off, kept it on track. But It's Racing is, hopefully for his own sake and for the sake of the points battle, going to be able to show us some wet overtaking by catching Addy Lizard. But I don't think we're seeing any closing down at the moment between the BMW and the Ford. I think it's all very much even Stevens.
Yeah, it looks fairly static for the moment. Of course, for those who don't know, Silverstone actually straddles two counties. Half it's in Northamptonshire. I think the other half is Buckinghamshire off the top of my head. So, as he's obviously decided to leave one county and head for another. Out of choice there, clearly from Glenn. So, I think our boss at HQ is not particularly happy with the story you told us then, Adam.
No, but I mean, it could be worse. I'm sure that he'll get his revenge on me at some point in the future. But we have just under 2 laps to go there, as it's racing. They're getting extremely loose on the entrance to the first corner.
Let's take a lap here with its racing. Navigated Abbey and Farm with difficulties. Got into Village Corner with difficulty through the nickety little left-hander of the loop, straighten it up a bit. White gives himself a good run now through Aintree Corners. It's sliding all over the place, but this time round using a bit of the artificial grass, but he's okay now down the Wellington Straight under the bridge, which connects the national and international insides of the circuit together. And now brakes late, and on the inside there into Brooklyn's corner, he chooses to hug the inside like it would be in dry conditions. Swings it around here with the right-hander of Luffield. Runs it a bit wide in the middle to try and point and squirt the corner a little bit, as he makes a good effort at that time. A bit of oversteer on the exit, but he's on the run now down towards Woodcut Corner, which actually in these conditions doesn't look quite as difficult as the first. Oh no, he's decided to use a bit more track than necessary there to get his way around it, so perhaps that does highlight that it is a bit tricky in these conditions there. But that's where, once again, weather-related difficulties as Glenn looks to be closing up on MTLA here, doesn't he? Looking on the track map there, the gap between first and second looks to have grown, and second and third has shrunk dramatically. We appear to have lost Adam now from Coventry. No matter, I will save the day here, as we've got Glenn now looking for second place here. Then as always, he's sliding it through there. MTLA was drifting it wide there. Clearly Vale and Club. It's a beautiful section in the dry there. It's very switchbacky, trying to look for the grip over the curves, but obviously in the wet conditions it is very, very tricky. Trying to get a bit of oversteer going to get you the change of direction required, as once again through the fast right-hander of Abbey. Of course, he used to go off to the left there for the Abbey chicane. It's no longer going under bridge. It is the left-hander of Farm, which is also looking incredibly tricky in these conditions. The slow right-hander here of Village. It's a quick short start. Bad. Get the words out there. This is too exciting. So into the loop and Aintree. We can often see people hang it around the outside of Village to have a stab at someone going into the loop, but Glenn not close enough on this occasion as he's on the last lap now, so might see a bit of a Dan Dare move from him later on, as the fight between Addy and It's Racing looks to be close as well. So we've got fights going on for second and fourth here on the last lap, and it's going to be interesting to see who can come out on top, as Optimus looks to be in control still of proceedings at the front. Does he not, Adam?
Yes, Optimus definitely has control over proceedings, but MTLA definitely doesn't have a guaranteed second position at the moment, with Glenhouse all over him. Fellow Scotsman Colin McRae definitely used to live by the phrase "win it or bin it," and well, Glenn cannot win it, but he definitely wants that second position. He's gone deep into the corner there. Once again, maybe that is intentional, as you've said. The outside line, the karting line as it's often referred to in these wet conditions. I'm not sure Glenhouse can do it now. He's just lost too much time to MTLA now.
Yeah, I don't think that was perhaps the optimal line to take. Oh, as he gets very oversteering Beckett's there. Yeah, I don't think that was the right line to take around Cop's corner in particular, as it's quite a fast right-hander. It's a very fast right-hander, so there's not really a chance to go to the outside and look for some grip there. It's better to still just stick to the inside. Someone who did and has all race long is Optimus, who has controlled the conditions beautifully once again.
Yes, a brilliant race from Optimus Prime. You don't need a degree to tell yourself that Optimus Prime has done a brilliant performance here at Silverstone in his bright yellow Lexus, and of course he will take the victory. He's got round the final corner, he's taken the flag and crossed the line for yet another brilliant victory. MTLA does keep that second place. It would have been interesting to see how close things would have been if Glenn hadn't made that mistake around the bottom half of the circuit, the Buckinghamshire half, I believe. Addy Lizard has crossed the line for fourth now. Yes, I think he has. No, he hasn't. He is right there with It's Racing just behind him. But It's Racing did not close up. Again, that mistake just at Woodcote there was enough. The Luffield Woodcote area, he spun out, and that was enough for him to lose fourth place on a permanent basis, and of course drop more points to Glenelg's 81, killing Heidi some way back, just exiting Beckett's now onto the Hanger Straight. So not a good race for Killing Heidi, but he will finish 6th position, so good on him for continuing on regardless of the gap between himself and the rest of the field. But the top 3 certainly ran away with that one, and it was Optimus Prime from MTLA 1984 and Glenelg's 81 that made that podium. A very good weekend from Optimus Prime, and I think he'll be wanting to repeat that again, because I'm sure he's savouring it as he drives that Lexus back to the paddock.
Yes, we've had 5 rounds now, really 7 different winners from them all, which is a very good strike rate, haven't we, for variety in this championship, which is what we're looking for, and it's what we've been given as Killing Heidi eventually finishes the race. Well, what would you say about that, Adam? It was quite a thrilling spectacle then, wasn't it?
It was definitely a very thrilling spectacle. The combination of the core Australian V8 supercars and the wet weather conditions proving to be very exciting indeed. The Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, the home of British motorsport, as you said at the start of the broadcast, serving us very well with some brilliant action, some very interesting battles, and also some very interesting wet weather tactics. Very interesting as well to see which drivers could capitalize on the wet weather conditions and which drivers were somewhat challenged by the wet conditions. Next time up, we're going to be at the Nürburgring, and if there's one thing I know about the Eifel Mountains, it's, well, quite frankly, that it rains a lot. So those people who struggled in the wet today may not want to go to the Nürburgring, because I have a feeling there might be some more damp patches on that racetrack. Memto 89 will be back out on track next time as well. Will be interesting to see whether his car is still cherry red or not, but he will certainly be towards the sharp end of the field.
Yes, and GPV Bambi coming back as well, hopefully. So we'll have both the Camaros there, which will be fantastic, as we haven't seen that since the race at Laguna Seca. I'll say, if you ever need a schizophrenic track for weather, it's a Nürburgring. We've known it, it's either wet there and freezing cold, or sometimes it's baking in sunshine, isn't it? Like seeing Hungary or something. So you can get anything going on at the Nürburgring. So we should hopefully see an entertaining race there, as we have pretty much everywhere so far. So looking forward to that one then.
Definitely, and with Memto, Bambi and Scotty 8646 all rumoured to be returning to the series at the Nürburgring, as well as a host of others, in 2 weeks' time, we could well see one of the best rounds of the season from the Eifel Mountains, from the Nürburgring. But until then, myself, Adam Weller, and of course Tom Chorley will leave you with the brilliant coverage of the Core TV's Core Australian V8 Supercars Championship. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. See you next time out at the Nürburgring.